So happy to be joined today by the former TNT champion, the one and only Powerhouse Will Hobbs. Powerhouse, welcome to Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversation. So glad you joined me today.
Thank you for having me.
So AEW All Out on Sunday in Chicago. You're going to be taking on the Redeemer Miro. What are your expectations from that match, and what do you think the fans can expect?
I mean, the only expectation that I have is to win. Miro and myself, we go back years back, so we know each other quite well. But as far as the fan aspect, I don't think the fans have seen a real big man hoss fight in AEW yet. So it's not going to be a lot of flippity doos and super kicks. It's just going to be two big MFs hitting each other. You know, Miro calls himself the Big Jack Bulgarian. Well, you know, I'm pretty much big, black, and jacked. So it's going to be heavy hitting.
And, you know, you guys are obviously both two big athletic dudes who could do a lot in there, too. And you mentioned, I was going to ask you if you guys had crossed paths before AEW. What was that like?
We crossed paths before down at Knox Pro Entertainment, which is ran by the Hall of Famer Rikishi, Gangrel, and Black Pearl. So we've crossed paths before.
Do you had some training there also?
Yeah, I've learned a lot from those guys down there.
And I believe they were who started him out too.
Yes, definitely.
So how many years back is this going then with you guys?
Oh man, this is quite a while back. It's a different chapter of the Book of Hobbs.
Yeah, definitely. Have you been in the ring with him there before? Just in some of those like training scenarios? I don't think you've ever faced him.
No, nothing faced, but we've been in the ring before.
So that's got to be a pleasure to be able to do that with somebody that you go back with that far. Obviously, you've got the current history now, as you mentioned, but to be able to go back with somebody who you've got a little bit of a history with.
Yeah, you know the past dictates the future. So.
All right, great. That sounds great. I'm really looking forward to that too. It'll be nice to see you guys getting that big of an opportunity. I was able to go to the two pretty important matches you had on the Arthur Ashe Stadium shows the last couple of years with Punk the first year, with Starks the second one. What was that situation like for you? What were those matches like for you in your career?
They were highlights of my career. I mean, especially at that stage, wrestling Punk. I believe that was his first match back on television. He wrestled, I believe, Darby before at All Out of Chicago, and that was his first televised match. So it was a big moment in my career. And then being the main event last year at Grand Slam with Ricky Starks, so that's another highlight in my career. I mean, we didn't get on until after midnight, and the fans were still packed there, and the trains had shut down. So that spoke a lot about myself and Ricky Starks, what we can do in the ring, to still have the fans there after midnight watching us closing out a show like that.
Man, such a historic venue too, and I did stick around all the way to the end, but I made plans for afterwards anyway because I knew, kind of what
appreciate you, because if you didn't stick around and you just told me you didn't stick around, now I have to come find you, man.
This will just be done now.
Yeah, I have to come find you.
So I follow wrestling pretty closely, but you particularly kind of came out of a little bit of nowhere for me when you came to AEW. How would you characterize your wrestling career before you joined AEW?
I was stuck in a bubble in NorCal, man, in California. So something just clicked, and I had my opportunity, got to Jacksonville and showcase what I could do, and everything else is, spoke for itself at that point.
And you stood out right away on AEW Dark, because I followed that stuff too.
Yeah, I'm big, black, and jacked. How can I not stand out, baby?
But you're also good too. I mean, it's obviously the level of, how did that connection come on?
But the things I do in the ring, it's believable. It's an extension of me. So everyone loves a good ass kicker. So.
What was that connection like with AEW right off the bat, being able to get seen there and then get signed there?
It was crazy. I mean, the first thing that I noticed was I had a bunch of gifts just every time I hit a spine buster. So that was pretty cool. But just the fact that, you know, we were in a pandemic and wrestling was on hold at some point, but AEW, I like to say they made history by not having wrestling on hold. They had live wrestling during the pandemic. So just to be a part of that, even if it would have been for one match, you know, would have been great.
Yeah, and then just the atmosphere they were able to create with even some of the extras and the crowd and some of those.
Yeah, you got to know. I mean, look at some of the people that started off during the pandemic. You know, myself, Ricky was there, the Guns were there, the Acclaimed, Hook came in through the pandemic. You know, so it's
Eddie Kingston
crazy.
in the challenge too.
Exactly. That was seeing him. That was crazy because, you know, me and him had crossed paths before, but it's crazy. Just think about all the people that started off during there.
Yeah, it's funny. It'll be funny in years. I don't really want to go back to watching some of that stuff now because it's just like, you know, you have so much better, you have so much good stuff right now that going back and watching the empty arenas is totally different. But like,
it is, but it's still. I like to say that it still made people believe.
Yeah. But I think if you go back, like you said, you look at the crowd at Daly's Place and you look at the crowd at the WWE Performance Center, and all of a sudden you're looking at the people who were actually like on television right now, that are the ones that are who were able to emerge and get through that. What'd you learn about yourself and your own wrestling through that time?
Man, I learned that it's hard trying not to do what we do in front of fans, you know, but what I got to learn is that, you know, this is the time to work on my craft. You know, if I can make everyone around the ring, which was talent, believe, then I can showcase that to our fans. So it made me want to work a little extra harder to impress my coworkers and my talent. I know if I could impress them, then I can impress the people.
So you were just over at Wembley Stadium in the UK for All In, and in that atmosphere, what was it like to be over there with AEW, and what does it mean to the AEW locker room to have such a milestone like that?
I mean, it means a lot to the locker room because we made history. Who doesn't want to be a part of history?
Right.
If you're part of this company, you were there, you're a part of history. You know, point blank, period. For the fans over there, man, they were great. They were respectful. I've never heard so many times people tell me, we respect what you do. Thank you. You know, and giving people hugs and, you know, people tearing up. I didn't know I had that effect on people. So it was great.
That's great. And it's also, from a wrestling perspective, just great to see AEW in this position.
Yeah,
as competition.
we're so young, and to think that we had 81,035 people there.
It's never happened before.
The company's so young. Imagine what we'll do next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, you got to constantly be moving forward, and that's kind of what AEW always is.
You have to.
Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Oh, yeah. Wrestling was on in my house before I was even thought about.
Really?
I mean, I've said this story before, but I'll give you the short version. So my grandparents moved from a small town in Mississippi, I believe in 1962, 63, and they moved right across the street from the Cow Palace. So, you know, the Cow Palace is, I like to say, is a mecca of the West Coast. But every other weekend they would go to shows. They would see Ray Stevens, Pepper Gomez, Pat Patterson, High Chief Peter Maivia, you know, Rocky Johnson, Roy Shire. So wrestling was always on in the house.
And it's cool that gets to be sort of your wrestling education too, because that's such an important place in wrestling history, such an important time.
I mean, I remember being young, taking vacations to go see family in Memphis, and, you know, in order for me to get a slice of peach cobbler, I would have to do the Fargo strut around the kitchen. You know, Fargo strut, Jackie Fargo. You know, that's where Jeff Jarrett got his strut from, Ric Flair. So, you know, wrestling was always on wherever we went.
Did you ever have any of the opportunity to go back and watch some of that old San Francisco stuff? Anything that, or is it mostly just the stories, kind of the word
It's
of
just
mouth?
stories. Like as stories, we would sit on my grandparents' bed and hear stories. Um, and I've caught a few clips online, but just like the stories about Pepper Gomez, he had the cast iron stomach, and he would have guys jump off a ladder and elbow him or knee drop him in the stomach. And I heard stories about Pat Patterson turning on Ray Stevens, and how Rocky Johnson and Peter Maivia would team up, and just all those things, like all those stories. Growing up, we would just be in a maze, sitting on the bed, hearing how when Ray Stevens was busted open, how the blood would trickle down his face and cover his blonde hair, and he'd shake his head, and all hell would break loose. So those were good times as a kid.
Yeah, and it's such a period too that influenced so much of wrestling, and I know that that's so much a fabric of AEW is kind of
Mhm.
understanding where everything came from, and that
Yeah,
you look at San Francisco, and that's just
I like to think to be a part of this business, you got to know some part of the history.
mentioning that too. And I'm going to skip around a little bit on my notes, but what did it mean to you when Hacksaw Butch Reed, before he passed away, took notice of you and kind of told people about it?
That was crazy, man. Like I got a message on Instagram from his son, and his son just, and I still have that message, and I still read it from time to time. His dad would just be amazed, and he would light up when he would see me in the ring, and he would say, "That's the new Hacksaw." And I know when we were in Kansas City, I was fortunate to have Butch Reed's family attend.
Wow.
I asked Tony Khan, if it would be okay if Butch's family could attend, and he jumped up and said, "Of course." And Tony has sent me a bunch of clips of Butch Reed from Mid South. So we've had conversations about Hacksaw, and what can I kind of do to to bring that out. But just watching his Mid South stuff, hearing stories from JR, and watching the stuff with Ron Simmons, with Doom, it's crazy. And it's one of the highlights of my career, him saying I'm the new Hacksaw.
I mean, he was Hacksaw and he was the Natural, but he was absolutely a powerhouse in his
He
own right
was, he
too.
was, he was.
If you see him and Ric
His feuds
Flair,
with JYD were crazy.
him and JYD, him and Ric Flair was always pretty entertaining too
I
for
saw
what it
that, and
was.
I saw him and Dusty go at
Wow.
it, online. So yeah, Butch was the man.
But kind of like to,
Definitely ahead of his time.
yeah, and to his point too, like kind of like, you guys are similarly sized, similarly built, similar skill sets, different eras, but
Yeah,
I think kind of the same idea, kind of updated. And do you kind of agree with that for kind of what your style is?
yeah, I can see a little Butch Reed in myself.
Yeah, and I just thought that was one of the coolest stories when
It
that came
was,
out.
it was, and it just the fact that I got to have his family attend the show, and they knew who I was without me even like introducing myself. I got to defend the TNT title in front of them against Ray Phoenix, so it was cool.
So you've talked about your background in the Book of Hobbs and the meaning of it. How did your background influence your presentation in pro wrestling?
I mean, I grew up in the slums in the hood, so that's all we had was wrestling and sports. Growing up where I'm from, it taught me how to be tough, it definitely shaped who I am as an adult. But wrestling did the same thing. For me personally, some of the wrestlers that I idolize, I kind of brought that to my real life and how I handle situations. But the way I grew up, man, I bring that to the ring.
Yeah. We had Aubrey Edwards on a few weeks ago. We talked a little bit about the different mental health videos that AEW had put out, and it was impressive to see the video you came out with for Suicide Prevention Month last year about men's mental health. And I just wanted to talk about that. Did you, what kind of was there a positive response to that? What's it like to have that sort of positive influence
It
over
was
people?
positive. I mean, because you look at someone of my stature, I'm not supposed to feel any type of emotion. I'm not supposed to be sad. You know, I'm human. Um, and I've talked to third parties, to get things out that I've went through, and it's good. I mean, you see someone my size, that hopefully someone out there saw that video and be like, okay, if Powerhouse can do it, I can do it. And I have 3 children. I have 2 boys and a girl, and I tell my boys, like, if you feel you need a break and you need to cry, let it out. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and thanks for doing that too, just because I think it meant a lot to
Nah,
a lot of people.
all good, man.
Yeah, and it looked like it seems like AEW as a company, but some of the other stuff they put out in association with that, Eddie Kingston, I know, and Amanda Huber did some other stuff too, and it's a good, not only a good look for the company, but it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're on a platform where we can touch people's lives, and we're on a platform where people will actually listen to us.
Right. Anyone who you consider mentors in your career before or during AEW?
Oh man, I gotta go with Billy Gunn. There's been times where Billy Gunn has pulled me aside and like, what the hell are you doing? Um, Mark Henry, that's my wrestling dad. Um, Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko. I definitely get help from all the vets in the locker room. So it's with this company, I have the relationship where I can go up to anyone and ask them for help.
I feel like you hear that a lot with Mark Henry in terms of his relationships with different talents. What is it about him that makes him so relatable for people who are in your roles or roles like yours?
For me personally, he's a big man. He knows what I should do and what I shouldn't do, what can work and what will work. Um, he he knows the struggles that you know that how can I put this? He knows the struggles that some of us face
Hmm.
um, in this business. So he's definitely relatable. I mean, he can say things to me and know what I'm thinking before I can even spit it out. So
I feel like Hobbs versus Henry would have been a, pretty tremendous
yeah,
spectacle
I
to.
heard he's working on a comeback. So but it's a different era. So I don't know if Mark wants this. So I don't know if you want to get this 2-piece.
Yeah. Um, what was it like being in Team Taz earlier in your AEW career? Ricky Starks and Cage and Taz, and what did you kind of learn during that time?
It was wonderful. I mean, we had to any little bit of time we turned it into gold. So we all connected very well. Um, Taz definitely taught us not to take any bullshit from anyone. Um, we set our own careers. We make our own path. So we definitely learned a lot.
And winning the TNT championship, is that kind of been the pinnacle for you so far in your AEW
Yeah,
career?
yeah. I mean, that's something nobody can take away from me. That was a champion. Especially
And
I got to do it in my home state, not too far from home in Sacramento. Defeating Warlow, who is a big name here. And he's a former TNT champion. So couldn't get any better than that.
as you move ahead in your AEW career, what are your immediate and kind of long term goals?
My goal is to be the first African American world champion here. My goal is to I have a lot of goals. Another goal is to take this company to a new level, to put this company on my back. And I got a big enough back, I can put the whole company on here. So that's definitely my goal.
Definitely good luck to you with that. Um, we're going to move on to something we call the 3 count now. It's going to be 3 quick questions and
Oh,
your
let's do it.
answers.
Let's do it.
So, if you had to show someone 3 Powerhouse Hobbs matches that you feel reflect you the best, what would you show them and why?
Hangman Adam Page, which was a Saturday Night Dynamite. We opened up the show. We set it on fire. Next one would be get CM Punk. The third one would be against Christian Cage.
Very good. Very good. Next question. If you could wrestle anyone in a Cow Palace main event from any time in history,
Ooh,
who would it be and why?
Anybody. Sold out crowd?
I mean, it's almost got to be if it's Cow Palace.
Sold
right?
out.
And you're on the top of the bill too, so.
Man, sold out crowd. I would probably love to work Dusty Rhodes.
And why?
Just because he's the people would love him, and I just think that people would hate me. Anything I would do to Dusty, and the matches I've seen, Dusty brings out the best in people with his charisma, the way he connects with the fans, the way he sells. Definitely could put over somebody like myself.
And then if you were going on the other side of it, just jumping off of that, if you had to wrestle somebody that was the on the other coin of Dusty Rhodes, if you were the good guy, is there any bad guy that comes to mind off of Cow Palace kind of history? I'd almost want to see you and Stevens myself.
I would say yeah. It would probably it'd actually probably be me and me and Ray Stevens, because that would be a brawl. It would be a San Francisco street fight.
Yeah, and there were so many things he could do, so many things he innovated that I don't think a lot of people remember.
The bombs away knee drop.
Yeah, and even the flip in the corner was him. I think it was.
Yeah, but everybody is taking that.
I believe Ric Flair took that from watching Ray Stevens. That was somebody he idolized. And then last question on the 3 count. Your entrance theme has changed a few times. If you could pick a theme song in just kind of real life to come out to, what would it be?
Oh, it would probably have to be. Oh man, that's hard. I am probably gonna have to pick. Oh man, I got so many. Damn. I'd probably say any Ice Cube song.
And why would that be?
Any Ice Cube or Too Short. Just because those two artists instantly get me hyped, no matter what song plays.
All right, very good. Well, Powerhouse Hobbs, thank you so much for joining me today. For everybody, AEW All Out is Sunday in Chicago. Powerhouse Hobbs taking on the Redeemer, Miro. All the best of luck to you for everything you're doing in your career. Really, really enjoying it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining us.